Here's the clavicle, right? It's called your collarbone in layman's terms. So we are in the 4th week of our semester. I prefer teaching in person. I feel like it's really important to develop that relationship, and I don't think you can do it as well online. I know that there are, programs that work really well online, but I feel from my students, they would prefer to be in person as well, not just because of me, but they get so much help from each other. Especially for science, labs are so much better in person. So the students are required to wear masks, and I am too. I typically wear a face shield though in class because I have students who are hard of hearing. I have one this year, and lip reading is really important for those students. So all the rest of the students are required to wear masks when in public places, which includes the classroom. And that presents a challenge too, because I know students will answer questions in class and I can't tell who has answered because I just see their eyes. So I'm sure I give credit to the wrong person. Great job on answering that question, because I really can't tell who did. So we always have to be aware of if we have students that are in quarantine or isolation, because modifications have to be made for that, whether it be time or recording our lectures or Zooming the students. So keeping track of students that may be sick. I think time management is a little bit more of an issue this year than in the past, because of all the disinfecting that needs to be done before and after class. So there's usually 10 minutes before classes, but there's an extra buffer now because you have to spray down everything.
Works of art, wealth and treasure. Again, if you're going to bury a pharaoh in ancient Egypt, what would you put with them? All their belongings, right? This is my second year teaching at Union College. I think the big difference between this year and last year is the cleanup expectations and the masks, of course. And so it's difficult sometimes for us to wear masks, especially if we have classes over lunch. People are hungry, they want to try to eat something, but we can't have food in the classroom. You're allowed to drink a little bit, but for the most part, you've got to wear the masks. And of course, if you have class where you have to run upstairs, a lot of people come to class a little bit winded, but for the most part, people are doing pretty well with that. The other procedure is classroom cleanup, spraying down the desks and the doorknobs. In my classes, we sort of have a rotation where students will volunteer, and in exchange they let them out a few minutes early, and it's worked pretty well, keeping things clean and safe. I think sometimes it may be difficult to read expressions, but usually people are expressive enough with their eyes that you can kind of tell what they're feeling. I think probably the biggest practical issue is trying to learn names. If you've got a larger class and you can only see half the face and someone's wearing a baseball cap and you can barely see who they are. Even students who I've known now for a couple of years, sometimes I've looked and I'm like, is that, and you have to kind of get a little bit closer and sort of tentatively say their name to make sure it's them. I've really just seen people following the procedures as best they can. I should say sometimes the arrows are confusing, especially in the ad building, trying to go up and down and which staircase goes up, which staircase goes down. I think everyone probably has been caught going the wrong way. I think there's just some general goodwill. People want to be here, they're glad to see their friends again, and are holding each other accountable. I acknowledge the first day of class, nobody likes wearing these masks. It's inconvenient, it's hot, you're winded, again, if you go up and down stairs, but it's way better than all being on Zoom.
I feel like the feeling is a little bit more gracious, I think, for everybody. I think staff and faculty are more willing to make allowances because everybody knows that everybody's struggling with what's going on. There's always anxiety for students, not just for their own health, but their families back home, for their friends. So I feel like everybody's more willing, this year, not that they weren't before, but just have this feeling of accommodation and to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and just to, just make sure everybody's doing okay because it's hard for everybody.
There's definitely a diminished energy level as far as all these new procedures, as well as just how COVID has affected their personal lives, whether it's plans, vacations, weddings, a number of different things that get affected. And so they're coming to class as present as they can be, but they've got all these other things, all these other stresses and anxieties that are happening because of the way things are going in the world. The nice thing is, I think both students and faculty are working to give each other a little bit more grace and realizing that probably none of us is operating at 100% capacity. I mean, there's always a few who thrive no matter what. But it's still good. We're still getting through the material, we're still learning, and still building the relationships and friendships that make Union the special place that it is.